Okay, guys, the billionaire's playbook for a breakthrough financial year. So, as I'm mapping out my breakthrough year with my coaches, I wanted to share with all of you the two things that I feel will be super powerful in allowing you to make 2025 your breakthrough financial year. And with anything that requires massive change, there are two pieces to the puzzle. The first one's always insight, right? What are the principles, the core principles that you need to shift in order to really have a breakthrough year? And I'm going to talk to you about Ray Dalio's Holy Grail of Investing. He is the founder of the world's largest $196 billion hedge fund, and I think it's a great concept, so I'm going to deep dive into that.
Welcome to Generational Wealth MD's podcast on financial freedom through investing in real estate. My name is Param Baladandapani. I'm a mom, radiologist, real estate investor, and mentor to others looking to start or scale their real estate portfolios. The goal of this podcast is to provide you with inspiration, strategies, and insight so that you can stop trading your time for money and live life on your terms. If you love the episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review.
But the second piece of the puzzle is always going to be strategy. And so once you have insight, I'm going to go over my 7-step process that I've been using for a few years now to implement this principle, to take the principle and use it to make it your breakthrough year. And this is the same process that I used last year to boost my passive income by 50% and triple our assets under management to over 375 million. Till a few years ago, though, New Year would come. I was super motivated, ready to take action, felt super energized. But at the end of the year, looking back, or the next New Year, I'd look back and the needle really hadn't moved that much. I was still trapped in my W-2 job, nowhere close to financial freedom. And looking back, hindsight's always 2020, right? Looking back, I looked at what had changed. And again, it was those two core things: having insight into the problem and then having a strategy to take massive action. So let's go over Ray Dalio's Holy Grail of Investing. Okay, it's the same principle that helped me retire at 41. And then we'll walk through the 7-step process that you can take to implement this principle and make this year the year you take massive action. In the rest of this podcast series, I'm also going to talk about the levers that you can use to gain momentum, and also go over case studies of physicians just like you who've used the same principle to grow their passive income and shelter their clinical income from taxes. And with all of this, I am super excited. I hope that you will be able to take these principles and make this your breakthrough year for finances and for your passive income. So let's get started. Okay, so when I was trapped in my W-2 job and living paycheck to paycheck, like I said, two things were missing, right? Two key things are always missing, right? Anytime you look at strategic shifts, there are two core principles that you need to start imbibing. The first is insight into what the problem is, and the second is to have an actual strategy for success, right? Something that really works and has been tried over and over again. So let's start off with insight, right? When I was able to shift and get to financial freedom at 41, so the core principle that I leaned into, and at that time, I really hadn't read about what David Swenson's principles were or Ray Dalio's principles were, and we're going to deep dive into it. But without knowing that, inadvertently, I leaned into the same principle, right? So my principle, the way I looked at it, was stop working harder. You need to start working smarter. And I've talked about this a lot. It was my aha moment was when I realized that if I went down the traditional retirement path, investing in the stock market, it was going to take me 17 years to retirement, right? And I used a retirement calculator. For those of you listening, if you haven't used our retirement calculator, that's something I built out after I had my breakthrough. That's generationalwealthmd.com/retirement in lowercase. You can download it, pop your numbers in and see what those numbers are for you. But investing in the stock market would take me 17 years to get to financial freedom. That's because of the 4% safe withdrawal rate. Investing in real estate using strategies that I used to accelerate using leverage, I was able to do it in a year, right? And so the core concept again is that of finding strategies where you have asymmetric risk reward, right? So what are ways where you can increase your returns while lowering your risk, right? That's the key principle. Now, this is exactly what David Swensen talks about. He is someone who took Yale's endowment from 1 billion to 31 billion as he was managing it. And his core principle, right, is that 90% of your portfolio returns are driven by asset allocation. It's not by picking stocks. It's not by option trading, right? It's not anything like that. It's something as boring as asset allocation, right? And so that's where when you shift your asset allocation, you are affecting the risk profile, lowering your risk, hopefully, the more diversification you have, but also increasing your returns, right? And that flows into Ray Dalio's holy grail of investing, right? And this is a concept. If you've read Tony Robbins' latest book, The Holy Grail of Investing, it's the core concept of that entire book, right? Ray Dalio is the founder of Bridgewater, the world's largest hedge fund, worth at one point up to $196 billion. In 2008, when the market melted down 37%, Bridgewater gave their investors a 9.4% gain, right? And his concept, right, his holy grail of investing, according to Ray Dalio, is that when you invest in multiple non-correlated investments, right, that reduces risk in your portfolio by 80% without compromising on returns. Now, when we say non-correlated investments, typically bonds and REITs are considered to be non-correlated, but there have been decades where there has been positive correlation between bonds and stocks, right? 1970s to 1990s, again, in 2022. Same thing with REITs, 2010 to 2020. So they're not necessarily the best assets that are not correlated to stocks. And so when Ray Dalio and others talk about alternative investments that are non-correlated to the stock market, they're talking about real estate, right? They're talking about private equity. They're talking about private credit, right? Multiple assets. But the largest alternative investment class is obviously real estate. That's something that I've leaned into heavily when I made my shift. But it brings us back to the same core concept that if you want asymmetric risk reward, that's what you want to be looking at. You want to lower your risk and you want to increase your returns, right? So that you can accelerate to financial freedom. You're doing that by investing, by shifting your asset allocation. The ultra high net worth individuals, if you look at them, they have 50% of their assets in alternative assets, right? So 50% of their allocation is in alternative assets, which is very different from what, a typical professional with a W-2, what their portfolio would look like, right? And when you're doing this, especially when you're investing in real estate, you're now investing in a non-correlated asset, so you're lowering risk, you're increasing returns. In real estate, your returns annually can be anywhere from 20% to 100% ROI. And if you haven't been to any of our 10X events yet, that's where we deep dive into these numbers, really help you drill down on those core concepts, and then walk you through building your unique roadmap to get that done. Make sure you sign up for our next event, which is in the first week of March. So go to generationalwealthmd.com/event and make sure you're on there if you really want to build your unique roadmap. But you can get those returns with real estate depending on the strategies that you pick. And now you have a tax efficient asset class that you're investing in where you're lowering risk, increasing returns, and you have those tax efficiencies, right? And so the core concept is to have that asset allocation. Don't put all of your eggs in one basket, and then learn to diversify across asset classes, not just asset classes, right? Across market cycles and across geography. And when you do all of that, you're significantly lowering risk in your portfolio and making sure you have, you're maintaining or exceeding the returns that you would otherwise get. Okay, so that's the core concept. That's the insight part of it that I want you to lean into if you want to really make this your breakthrough financial year. Okay, so that's the first piece. What is the insight? What is the core principle that we're leaning into? And then we move on to strategy, right? So that's where the 7-step process comes in. This is the process that I've been using for the last few years to get massive results, right? And it's built in a way where if you follow it step by step, and you really need to go through each of those steps, that's how you come up with a fail-proof strategy to make sure, okay, you can go from, okay, I understand the concept to let me take this and actually take massive action, right? So those are two different things. So let's see how we put that together. Okay, so the 7-step process, let's get started. So the first part of that is going to be know what result you're looking for, right? So again, you have to have a clear financial vision. My vision when when I plan out my breakthrough financial years, or for the year that I actually had my breakthrough year, right, where I went from paycheck to paycheck in medicine to completely financially free, was really knowing where I wanted to be, right? So get very clear in terms of your numbers. What do I need on a monthly basis? Okay, what is my vision? What is my vision for this year? What is my vision for the next 5 years? You start off from there, right? And so again, with this strategy piece, remember that those numbers are going to be very different for all of us, which is why the concept of one size doesn't fit all comes into play over and over again, because you're not piggybacking onto someone else's plan. You're going to try to build your unique roadmap so you can take massive action. And so your vision is going to be very unique to you, right? Depending on where you are and where you need to get to. So the first step is going to be result. Get very, very clear on the result that you want. Okay. Now, second step is going to be your purpose. And you've heard me say this over and over again. If you really don't understand your why, you're going to stay in cruise control mode. And most of us are in cruise control mode, right? You are going to your W-2 job. Things are okay, maybe a little painful, but not painful enough for you to want to make a shift. And when you have a time of crisis, which is what happened to me, then you're pivoting. It's almost easier to pivot because you have to, right? You have no option. But I want all of you to be able to pivot before you get to a point where you have a crisis in your life, because all of us are going to have some kind of roadblock at some point. And I want you to be able to make those shifts even before you get there, right? And so it's really, really important to hone into your why. Why is it important for you to make these shifts this year? For some of you, it may be because you want more time with your family. For some of you, it may be freedom, autonomy, and security. All of those things, really hone in on this. Again, we do a lot of this, the vision work, building out your unique roadmap during the 10X event. And so, if this is just a really high level overview, but really a lot of the work is done with a workbook in hand during the 10X event. So make sure you sign up. That's generationalwealthmd.com/event. But start off with your result. Where do you want to be at the end of this year? What is your purpose? Why is it absolutely necessary for you to make that change this year? Step 3 is building out your massive action plan, right? Again, this goes back to the same core concept of one size doesn't fit all. And so your massive action plan is your unique roadmap.
If you're interested in learning how to invest in long-term and short-term rentals the right way, so you can accelerate to financial independence with the support of mentorship, community, and vetted investor agents in strong markets across the country, then get on the waitlist for the next cohort of Creating Generational Freedom at www.generationalwealthmd.com. You don't have to learn from decades of costly mistakes by yourself. The program is only open for enrollment in the spring and fall each year. In the last 6 months alone, our members have acquired over $60 million of real estate, and more importantly, they're living life and practicing medicine on their terms. You don't have to do it alone.
As part of this podcast series, I'm going to talk about my story, which is, and I say, you can divide people into 3 broad categories when it comes to real estate investing. You have the passive investor. And when we talk about my pediatrician friend and her journey, it's going to be, her story is a typical investor story, right? So that it's more passive investing. That's what got her. That is the roadmap she built for herself that she stayed on. We'll talk about my story where I'm a hustler. So there was a year or 2 in between where I really worked hard to really tap into some of those tax strategies, keep a lot of capital in my pocket, right? I sheltered a significant part of my clinical income from taxes. That was my story. I forced appreciation rapidly in properties, really generated equity rapidly so I could scale faster. So I call myself the hustler, right? That's the second category. And then you'll hear from Zach and Valerie, who I call entrepreneurs, because they invested in short-term rentals. And they did that because that allows them as two people who work full time to really tap into those advanced tax strategies, shelter their income from taxes, and also give them significantly higher revenue, right? But then they run that like a business, a short-term rental, right? So many different ways to invest, to add alternative asset classes to your portfolio. And I always say be very intentional about which category you fall into so you can build out your unique roadmap for massive action, right? So we talked about three things. We talked about start with the result, start with your purpose, your why, and then build out your unique massive action plan. And if you really want guidance with all of that, again, join us at the 10X event. But then despite this, and this is why this is a 7-step process, right? Despite this, people still will fail because they can come out of, listening to this podcast episode and you can say, okay, I think I want to be an investor, or, oh, I'd love to do short-term rentals. But again, there are so many steps beyond that, right? And so step 4 to 7 is all about how do you ensure that you don't fail. And the fourth step is is prioritization, right? And so when you listen to this and you have a massive action plan, you can come up with 10 different things that you need to do. And you cannot do all of them at the same time. You cannot give them the same importance. So this boils into the 80-20 principle, right? So 80% of what you achieve is because of 20% of what you do, and you need to focus on that 20%, right? This is what I teach people on coaching calls, right? And this is what we talk about during the 10X event. Also, it's all about chunking it and sequencing it, right? So take it in small, bite-sized steps. And what is the saying? Yard by yard is hard, but inch by inch is a cinch. Anyway, so the point is, you have to take it step by step and look at a small chunk that you're going to tackle at any given time, right? So taking it step by step and doing it in the right sequence is going to be key. That's where prioritization comes in. It's what I call chunk it and sequence it, right? Make it small bite-sized things that you need to tackle at a given time and do it in the right sequence. And again, we go over this in depth during the 10X event. So if you're thinking short-term rentals, if you're thinking, I want to start getting my first long-term rental, or you're thinking, okay, no, I need to start really amping up into multifamily, we talk about all of this during the 10X event, but prioritization is key. And then the next part, number 5, time stamping, is again a personal favorite because you can make something a priority. And I still hear physicians all the time come to my coaching calls, especially our one-on-one coaching students, and they'll say, I just don't have the time to do it. And that's such a common story. All of us have the same problem. And so one of the most important things you can do is really time block, right? Put it on your calendar and say, I'm going to get this done within the next week, and actually put it on your calendar, block out a time, and that's all you're going to be doing during that time frame. Oftentimes things just seem so much larger and it seems like that they take up more time and energy than they actually do. And so it's important for us to really put it on, timestamp it, know how long you're giving yourself to get it done, put it on your calendar, and then just get it done, right? And it gets done so much faster with more certainty when you actually timestamp and put it on your calendar. And so, for those of you, like for me, when I think about really taking action, we are hosting our first in-person event in this fall, the Physician Freedom Summit. And I have already started looking at venue spaces. I have an event manager, I've paid them and I'm committed to it, right? So sometimes it's just like taking that step and saying, okay, this is what I'm going to do this week. I'm going to get this done. But for those of you who, would love to connect with us during this in-person event, there's going to be education, but more importantly, I love in-person events because there's so much networking happening. This is possibly where you find your next joint venture partner with whom you're going to buy your next deal. This is where you meet industry expert speakers and get to spend time with them in person. So there's so much power in in-person events. It's generationalwealthmd.com/summit in lowercase. If you're interested, go fill out the form. So we'll get in touch with you, within the next few weeks as we start opening that up for people to sign up for. But again, time stamping and really time blocking are 2 key points to really take action. Okay, now what's next? Next is my personal favorite. Number 6 is leverage. And, there's so many ways to add momentum to your strategy. And that's what leverage is all about. I love it when we talk about tax strategies, right? Because that's one way to like pull a lever and really add momentum to your strategy. We have, part 4 of this Billionaires Playbook podcast series is about Valerie and Zach and their story about how they invested in a short-term rental and how they were able to shelter, a significant amount of their clinical income from taxes. This is what I've been able to do. In some years, I've been able to shelter close to $250,000 of my clinical income from taxes, right? And so tax savings is an integral part of really adding leverage and momentum to your strategy. I think community is a big part of adding leverage to your growth strategy, and to it's a lever you can pull to really make this your breakthrough financial year. Like within our coaching program, for example, we have WhatsApp groups for our students who are investing in a certain market, and there's the coaching, there is the content. But what happens within that group is like it's almost magical because people are sharing resources. Which handyman did you use? Who is your photographer? Who are your cleaners? And these are people who are willing to give and share. And what happens there is that you're tapping into the expertise of a collective community, and boom, it's who not how. You're using so much less energy to get outsized returns, right? And so that's stacking. That is, when two people get together, you get 3x, 4x the work done. That's the power. That's leverage. That's really supercharging your strategy. So community, those connections are really important. This is also what you will see within the 10x event. And then again, if you're looking to scale your real estate portfolio, working with the right agents, investor agents, is like a huge barrier, right? Not finding the right agents, people who can actually guide you, vet some of those properties, and make your path so much easier. That's another lever that we love to pull within the coaching community. Within Creating Generational Freedom, the coaching program, we have vetted agents who really connect you, do a lot of that vetting, run numbers for you. And so I think a big barrier, a big block is when you don't have the right agents to work with. So I always say, if you are trying to do this yourself, piggyback onto the teams if you have friends, colleagues, family, someone who's already doing this, piggyback onto their teams, but really having the right agents, having that community, and tapping into the power of tax strategies. All of that really adds momentum, right? So that is leverage. Now, when it comes to passive real estate investing, and a lot of these passive opportunities, alternative investments, access has in the past, I would say, right, 10 years ago, access was the barrier. And you didn't really hear people talk about passive real estate investing opportunities because it was a small group of elite people who had access. And I would say in the last 5 years, that has really opened up, right? And access is less of an issue. More and more people have access to these, private real estate opportunities. And if you're looking for vetted passive investment opportunities to consider as a passive investor, then gwcapital.com. That's where you can get on our priority investor list. Again, that is also another way to add leverage to really have access to deal flow, right? That's a big part. Okay, now the last and final step is going to be execution and course correction, right? So we've talked about all these steps in, okay, how do you really take action? And if you notice this, we started off with insight, and then we're talking about the 7-step process, and execution and course correction is the last step. But you could literally use this for anything. You could use this for health. You could use this for relationships. This is typically how you work through any process to build out a roadmap and to really consistently take action, right? And so when we talk about execution and course correction, again, this is where you lean into mentorship, you lean into accountability partners. And if you're looking for momentum and learning how to do this step-by-step process and execute it, then the 10X event is for you. Make sure you sign up. We have some of our students come and talk. We have our coaches share their experiences. These are physicians just like you who have full-time jobs, who have kids, who again, on the outside, it may seem like they don't have time, but they have found the way. And oftentimes it's using the same process, right? Because this is what we teach within the 10X event. And it's a free virtual event. So there's really no reason why you shouldn't join. But it's taking the same process and executing it. And they take massive action, right? They own short-term rentals. They run them. Some of them self-manage them. They tap into tax strategies. They're building their portfolio. So execution and course correction requires the support of mentors and accountability partners and community. And if you're looking for that, then join the 10X event, generationalwealthmd.com/event. But that's the 7-step process. Again, like I said, you could use this for any part of your life. And if you're really looking to use this for, to make this your breakthrough financial year, then I gave you a core concept, that insight. That is what you take, and you then use the 7-step process, and boom, if you are following this and constantly course correcting, by the end of the year, you will have taken massive action. And again, in part 2 of this series, we're going to talk about, especially, I think this is a very exciting time. We're going to talk about tax reduction in 2025 and beyond, with President Trump and, the direction he's likely going to be taking the country as far as tax strategies. We'll talk about what to expect, how you can position yourself strongly. We will, in part 3 of this series, I'm going to give you the story of a part-time pediatrician who is also a millionaire real estate investor, again, to show you how physicians just like you are doing this. Part 4, like I mentioned, Valerie and Zach are students who a few months ago started from 0 to multiple assets, so investing in syndication, short-term rentals, and really tapping into those tax strategies. Again, powerful stories of people using the same 7-step process, leaning into the same key principles. I'm super excited. And again, the 10X event is going to be phenomenal. For those of you who have never attended it, you should. There's no reason you shouldn't. It's virtual, it's free, and it is essentially, step by step, how do you go ahead and take action, and tons of high yield, valuable information. Definitely lean into it. And for those of you who've already attended it, realize that every time you come back to this event, you are learning new things, new strategies, you are course correcting. You're really, whenever you have a roadblock, right? This is about execution and really taking it to the next level and scaling. So this is valuable for people who have no idea what they are doing as far as real estate investing, to people who have a significant portfolio and are looking to scale. So wherever you are, this will be super, super high yield. Make sure you sign up. That's generationalwealthmd.com/event. But with that being said, I am very excited about the rest of this podcast series, and I hope to see you guys on there.